Welcome to the Deep Dive. So you've brought us a fascinating and deeply complex stack of material today.
It is. We're looking at two vast theological systems side by side.
And our mission for this deep dive is clear. We are looking at the claims made by the foundational text of the unification movement, the divine principle, or, the DP, as it systematically contrasts itself with traditional Western evangelical views of the Bible.
That's right. And this isn't about, minor doctrinal squabbles.
No.
We're analyzing a claim of fundamental structural superiority. The DP says it's not just another option. It claims to be the completed revelation.
Completed. So the idea is that it's necessary to resolve these long-standing paradoxes and ambiguities that its proponents say have really plagued traditional evangelical theology for centuries.
Exactly.
So we're essentially looking at a framework that claims to be the master key to everything, to history, to scripture.
A master key is a great way to put it. The big claim we're unpacking is that the DP offers, greater systematic completeness, superior logical clarity.
And a truly coherent structure that finally reconciles these biblical puzzles that, honestly, many Christians just accept as mysteries.
Precisely. So for today, we're adopting the lens of the DP proponents themselves, looking at their arguments that they have a unified key, a hermeneutical solution, if you will.
A solution that unlocks the whole story.
Yes, the comprehensive narrative of God's purpose for humanity and history in a way that, they argue, the often fragmented, sort of disparate interpretations within various evangelical traditions just can't.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start at the absolute foundation, right? The nature of divine authority and revelation itself.
In evangelicalism, the bedrock is famously the doctrine of sola scripture alone.
Scripture alone.
And this is tied directly to the doctrine of the sufficiency of the Bible. The 66 books are considered the final, completed word. It contains everything you need for salvation, for life, for faith.
So anything that comes after, like extra-biblical revelation, is viewed with
profound skepticism, to put it mildly.
But the divine principle just radically challenges that entire assumption of sufficiency.
Absolutely. The DP's position is that the Bible is, without question, divinely inspired, but it is incomplete.
Incomplete.
Incomplete. DP theologians argue that the Bible actually contains inherent contradictions, ambiguities, and what they call gaps.
And their reason for this isn't that God failed to communicate, but that human capacity was actually the limiting factor.
Exactly. The DP explains that any revelation at any point in history, whether to Abraham or Moses or the apostles, it had to be constrained.
Constrained by what?
By the language, by the cultural context, and, by the spiritual maturity level of the people at that time. It was a partial delivery of the truth, often in parables and symbols suited for a historical stage that just wasn't fully mature yet.
And that, of course, allows the DP to insert itself, claiming to be the final systematic truth revealed for what they call the completed growth stage of human history.
Which corresponds to the era of the Second Coming?
Right.
And this is where their argument for a more unified framework really starts to gain traction. Proponents argue that because the DP is designed for this mature era, it can offer clear, logical solutions to these long-standing theological dilemmas that evangelicals
often just label divine paradoxes.
Exactly. It's a mystery.
Can you give us an example, a paradox that the DP claims to resolve with, superior clarity?
A huge one is the Old Testament law. Evangelical theology can sometimes struggle to explain the exact purpose and sort of the duration of it.
It's often seen as a way to show that humanity couldn't achieve righteousness on its own.
Right.
Pointing to the need for Christ.
Right. The DP, though, it systematizes the law as a precise set of conditions for indemnity.
Indemnity, so like penance.
In a way, yeah, it was a temporary system of penance, a way to restore specific failed historical conditions, not just a generalized moral guide. And this systematic view, according to proponents, it integrates the often harsh nature of the law into a coherent developmental plan.
So the claim is, evangelicalism sort of accepts the law as a mystery designed to fail, while the DP sees it as a precise functional step in a blueprint for restoration.
That's a great way to put it. The DP aims for, absolute logical coherence over mystery. The argument is that a truly all-knowing God wouldn't communicate fundamental truths in a way that requires constant, inexplicable paradoxes to accept.
Okay. Now let's shift to the concept of human depravity and the fall. This is where the interpretations diverge so radically, and it changes the entire doctrine of salvation.
It really does. Both center on Genesis 3, but the how and the why, the mechanism of the fall, is completely different.
So in evangelical tradition, the fall is more of a spiritual act, simple disobedience.
Right. Adam and Eve chose their will over God's command about the fruit. The original sin that results is a loss of righteousness, a corrupted nature passed down through the bloodline, but the actual act is abstract.
It's spiritual and intellectual, a turning away from God.
Mm. But the divine principle just rejects that abstraction completely. It provides a highly systematic, very physical and relational explanation. They call it the three-stage fall.
And this detail is crucial for understanding everything else in their theology, isn't it?
It is absolutely foundational. The DP asserts that the fall was, at its core, a failure of love and a corruption of the lineage. And it happened in two distinct premature stages.
Both violating the rule to reach perfection under God's blessing before starting a family.
Exactly. The first stage was the spiritual fall. This involved Eve engaging in a premature, illicit spiritual and sexual act with the archangel Lucifer, who they identify as Satan.
Okay, so that's described as a kind of spiritual adultery.
Yes, and it established a non-God-centered foundation of love. This spiritual corruption was then cemented in the second stage, the physical fall.
Which is when Eve then prematurely urged Adam into an illicit physical sexual act.
Correct. The result was a lineage founded on corrupted love.
And the outcome was catastrophic.
Catastrophic because it corrupted the very process by which God intended to establish what they call the four great loves and the ideal family. Instead of reaching maturity and getting God's blessing to multiply goodness, humanity's entire lineage was rooted in this selfish, illicit love.
Which results in a physical and genealogical corruption passed down through history.
Exactly.
And the DP view claims this hyper-systematic explanation provides a more compelling reason for human reality than the evangelical account of just abstract disobedience.
Well, proponents argue the evangelical view fails to logically explain the intense, persistent, and very physical consequences of the fall. Specifically, lust, sexual dysfunction, shame, the breakdown of the family unit across all cultures.
It's a fair question. If the sin was just intellectual, why are the most persistent human problems so physical and relational?
That's their point. The DP's focus on the corruption of the lineage and love provides a direct, concrete cause and effect link. And they position this as a superior, more satisfying explanation for the universality of human depravity.
Which then makes the necessity of the true parents, the concept of a new, purified lineage, the logical cornerstone for their path to restoration.
It provides the systematic theological necessity, yes. If the original corruption was genealogical and physical, the reversal has to be genealogical and physical too.
Let's zoom out. From the individual fall to the macro-historical level, how do these two frameworks interpret, the 6,000-year sweep of human history?
Evangelical historical theology, it typically focuses pretty narrowly on the covenant history of Israel and the church.
Right.
And while God's sovereignty is acknowledged over all global events, the broader arc of history, especially with non-Abrahamic civilizations, is often viewed through general, sometimes unsystematic providence. The timeline focuses mainly on events leading to Christ's first and second comings.
The DP introduces a systematic blueprint, the principle of restoration, and suggests history is not at all random.
Far from it. It provides an incredibly detailed, systematic chronology. History, according to the DP, is a precise, deterministic system of repeating providential time periods.
Like cycles of 400 years, 1,200 years, 2,000 years.
Among others, yes. And these periods aren't arbitrary. They are historical requirements laid out to indemnify or pay penance for past failures within a required time frame.
So,
Yeah.
specific historical figures or even nations are basically repeating attempts at restoration.
Exactly. If a historical figure or a nation failed to meet a specific condition for indemnity, say a 400-year period of preparation like the Exodus-era history, had to repeat a similar pattern until the condition was finally met.
And this creates the DP's systematic explanation for why history seems so full of frustrating setbacks and delays.
It does. What's also fascinating here is the DP's claim of truly holistic integration.
Right. How does this system incorporate figures and traditions from outside of Christianity and Judaism?
This is a major aspect of their claimed superiority. The principle of restoration integrates all major world religions and historical philosophies, Confucianism, Buddhism, Islam, into this grand goal-oriented plan.
They're seen as preparatory vehicles.
That's the term. For example, Confucianism is systematically integrated as establishing the necessary societal structure for filial piety and ethical relationships.
which prepares humanity to accept the true parent figure when they arrive.
Right. And Buddhism prepares the spiritual yearning for truth, and Islam helps unify specific regions under monotheism.
So instead of seeing these religions as competing paths or just general works of providence, the DP sees them as necessary, planned, systematically structured steps in global preparation.
It provides a logical, structured answer to the question, why has the kingdom of heaven taken 6,000 years to arrive? They argue evangelical theology lacks this systematic worldwide blueprint, which can make God's historical management seem arbitrary.
Whereas the DP offers a full, comprehensive historical coherence that integrates all human striving toward one unified goal.
The establishment of the physical kingdom of heaven on earth.
This brings us right to the most radical theological pivot point. This challenges the very core of evangelical salvation doctrine, the role of Jesus and the need for a second coming.
For evangelical theology, it's settled. Jesus' mission was fully successful. The crucifixion was the ultimate necessary sacrifice, the atonement. It satisfied divine justice, completed the spiritual work.
And salvation is obtained solely through faith in this finished work.
Yes.
The divine principle, however, argues that Jesus' mission was fundamentally incomplete.
That's the core difference. The DP argues that Jesus achieved spiritual salvation. He was the spiritual true parent. He certainly opened the spiritual path to God, but he was prevented from achieving physical salvation, which they say was the central purpose of the Messiah's coming.
Okay, let's define physical salvation in the DP framework. It's clearly much more than just avoiding bodily death.
Much more. Physical salvation means fulfilling the original mission of Adam and Eve in perfection. It required Jesus to reach full maturity, marry a spiritual bride, and establish the perfected, sinless lineage, the true family on earth.
And this physical foundation would have structurally redeemed humanity's corrupted bloodline, establishing the physical kingdom of heaven right then and there.
That was the original plan, yes.
And the DP states this physical mission was stopped by humanity's rejection of him, which led to his premature crucifixion.
Correct. The failure was external, caused by the lack of faith from the people of Israel at the time. This incompleteness then creates the theological necessity for the Lord of the Second Advent,
Identified as Reverend Sun Young Moon.
to return and complete that unfinished physical mission, marrying a spiritual bride, establishing the physical true family foundation, and ultimately unifying the world to establish the physical kingdom of heaven on earth.
And DP proponents argue this model is superior because it systematically resolves the most nagging logical inconsistency many people have with traditional Christianity.
Which is?
If Jesus' work was fully successful 2,000 years ago, if the victory was absolute, why is the world still so dominated by war, systemic sin, and profound suffering? Why hasn't the physical kingdom materialized?
The DP offers a concrete, systematic answer. The work was not finished 2,000 years ago. The failure was physical and genealogical, so it requires a physical successor to complete the restoration by purifying the lineage.
Which avoids the ambiguity of just waiting for some future, unpredictable, supernatural event.
It offers instead a coherent, step-by-step process of restoration that they believe is happening now.
We've covered a vast, dense amount of material today. To kind of bring the conversation full circle, we've explored how the divine principle systematically positions itself against evangelicalism by claiming these structural advantages in 4 key areas.
Right. We've seen that the claims of superiority really boil down to, first, logical clarity, offering detailed, precise explanations for things like the mechanism of the fall that evangelicalism often leaves abstract.
Second, systematic coherence.
Where history isn't random but follows a precise, structured, and repeated blueprint of indemnity.
And third, holistic integration, unifying all of human history and all world religions into a single, goal-oriented principle of restoration, which transcends those traditional religious boundaries.
And finally, completeness of revelation. It positions itself as the necessary update that resolves the ambiguities and contradictions present in the previous dispensation.
So from the perspective of its adherents, the divine principle doesn't just interpret the Bible or history.
No, it claims to provide the ultimate definition of the purpose and meaning behind all prior revelation. It claims to be completing the theological edifice that they believe evangelicalism continues to struggle within because of the strict confines of sola scriptura and its reliance on mystery.
This analysis really highlights a profound theological tension, doesn't it? the need for systematic closure versus the role of divine paradox. The DP tries to answer every unresolved question with a precise mechanism. There's no room for mystery.
Not at all.
So think about that as you continue your own deep dive. What stands out to you about the necessity, or maybe the risk, of a theological system that tries to eliminate all paradox, insisting on a fully knowable, logical blueprint for God's interaction with humanity?